you, I've got a counter that we're using here because we are live
Yes,
now.
yes,
Okay.
but I am in a nondescript location, where the U.S. government can't extradite me. I'm
I,
there.
I notice you're dressed in like dark clothing, dark hat, got, a little bit of shade going on there above you, dark background. Sounds like there's lots of noise in the background to muffle any identifying city nightlife sounds.
Well,
You're really in hiding, aren't you?
I don't know that I would describe it as city nightlife sounds, but
Hmm.
let's have a moment of silence and let's see that if any of our viewers can guess the nondescript location that I am at.
Yeah. I
Okay,
don't know.
so
I
did we
don't
give
know.
them enough time?
That's a pretty tough guess there. And speaking of viewers, we got about 15 people watching. I can't see the chat yet, so I'm trying to scramble to get the chat set up here.
Well,
And we'll,
scramble on.
yeah, we'll try to figure out what everybody's saying.
So,
I got to solve this Google CAPTCHA thing, and I've got to identify all the traffic lights in this thing. Oh, I hate this. All right. Anyway,
traffic
so
lights. What are you talking about? Shed Road? They closed it down. I mean, there's
uh,
nobody in Bossier City crossing over Shed Road. I mean, Tommy and Lou are going to get their rail spur for Tommy's yard there. I mean, oh wait a minute, that's for another show down the road. I jumped way ahead,
yeah, you
so
got
far ahead. He may not
tunnel
even be mayor by that time.
tunnel
Holy
vision.
crap!
Yeah, tunnel vision on that deal. But yeah, who knows? He might be a one termer. Hey, he might get reelected. Who knows these days? It's hard to tell. Okay, I have the chat up, so if people will just say a few things in the comments, and let me see if this part of the software is working. We'll continue on. But look, I got to say something right off the bat. Before we get into our countdown and all that kind of good stuff. And this is probably going to, forgive the phrase, ladies, this is probably going to blow the skirts up of some of our Republican and quote unquote conservative friends. Do you know why I support Ukraine in this
Wait a
conflict?
minute. So you're saying you're on the side of the Nazis because remember the
Well, no. No.
last show we talked about this. You have to be either a Nazi or a socialist. I
Well,
mean, it's one of the two.
well, okay. So hold that thought for a second, and I'll segue into that too. So the reason that I'm on the side of Ukraine in this conflict is because support Zelensky. You know why I support Zelensky?
Because he makes car parts for the American people that.
No, no, no,
Oh wait a
no,
minute, no,
not at
that was a
all.
movie.
He has a
That
close
was a movie
relation.
with Tommy Boy. I'm sorry, I was
You're
you know.
getting closer. He has a close
Okay,
relationship, even though he may not realize it, with Ronald Reagan.
Zelensky.
Yes,
He's
sir.
he's a kid. There's no way he knew Ronald Reagan.
I didn't say he knew him. I said he had a close relationship with him. They're both
Okay,
actors, or
okay.
were.
I see.
Oh,
Okay. I'm catching up to you now.
yeah. Zelensky was an actor slash comedian. I think he actually tried to dance on Dancing with the Stars or whatever. Reagan was a great actor as well, and was able to use that in front of the camera to talk to the American people. Zelensky's able to talk to Ukraine and the rest of the world because of his acting skills.
Okay, so he didn't make car parts and or brakes specifically, and he wasn't in a movie with Tommy Boy. Is that what you're
But he
saying?
may have been. I don't know. I hadn't looked to see all of his credits. But not just that. He's standing up to the USSR in progress as well.
Oh, good grief! Where are we at in this world?
I
I
don't
gotta
know.
tell
But
you
I'll
that.
tell you something else going to blow the skirts up of some of my conservative friends. I want to know how many people watching support the actions of France and other countries in seizing the yachts of the Russian oligarchs and other assets. How many people think that's a good idea to help the war effort against Russia?
Now, now I gotta ask you, all the 81 million people who supported, the POTUS. I'm just wondering how many of y'all are happy today with the gas prices, and I mean, are y'all planning your vacation trips? And I mean, I'm just wondering, how are y'all feeling today? Are
Yeah.
you happy now with the gas? Are you happy? Where? Where are you at? I'm not hearing all of your cheering. Where are y'all at?
All right, let's go ahead and do our 2.5 minute countdown. Folks, y'all have two main things to think about. One is the gas price situation. And number two, do you support seizing the assets, specifically yachts, but any of the assets of the Russian oligarchs in the war effort against Russia and for Ukraine? Think about that while we go to break. Y'all grab some popcorn, tag some friends. We're going to be discussing Ukraine, judge, jury, and executioner in Bossier City, the Linton Road Bridge.
Wait a minute. Judge, executioner, are you talking about the Bossier City Council?
Sure.
Well, surely Tommy Chandler and Judge Charles Jacobs is somewhere in there.
Oh, I'm sure I can mix them into it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure, because we can't leave them out. I mean, you know, they public servants that they are, they have the best interests of the public city of Bossier in mind. Of course, we have to talk about them.
Yeah, and then I'm going to remind everybody of a great quote by City Councilman District 1, Brian Hammonds. He had a great quote that I found in one of our debates. We're going to discuss that. Oh, and we have a guest on, Jill Hines, and we're going to look at some of the bills that are upcoming in Baton Rouge and get a little feedback on what we need to keep an eye out for.
Wait a minute. You telling me Jill's going to tell us that Baton Rouge has learned that COVID? There's some questions about that.
Might be.
All of our elected officials who were like all scared to hell and back about COVID, are you telling me that now some people are having buyer's remorse? Are they owning up?
Maybe so. Maybe it's going to be rip the mask off. What was that deal back in the 70s that the women's lib movement and women's suffering and all that went through? They were ripping parts of clothing off. Now maybe it's rip the mask off.
Let's go to break and we'll come back.
All right, folks, we'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Yes, this is to let y'all grab something to drink, get some popcorn, tag some friends. It's also because at about the 10 to 12 minute mark, more people will be watching the show, so there is a method to the madness. We will be right back, and we'll discuss and try to figure out Duke's undisclosed location. We'll be right back. Eagle Truck Center, soaring to new heights. The outdoor news, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 23 years in the mortgage business. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And the many supporters, donations, and folks sharing information and watching out for Bossier. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. Hey, did you know we've already gotten a compliment?
A compliment? How in the world is that possible?
Well, Jimmy Richardson put a comment up. He said, just joined in. The audio sounds so much better than usual. Now, I'm glad the audio sounds great, and thanks for the compliment, Jimmy, and we're glad you're watching the show. But I got to tell you, Duke has got a bunch of static going on in the background because he's trying to hide his location. Notice he's in dark clothes. This is like a Mission Impossible show or something.
Again, I am in a nondescript location where extradition is not in the cards. But what I will say is down here, they don't believe in the COVID fallacy and, the fake COVID crap. They're not all into that down here.
Well, Mike Cummings Jr. says Duke isn't in jail, is he? I do see a few bars back there, Mike, so, that's always a strong possibility.
Well, what I would ask is it still light back home in Louisiana? I don't know.
No, but I can tell you this. It's dark, dreary, and a little chilly outside.
I got to tell you that. Well, what I will say is it is dark here. It is not chilly, and it is warm, and it is pleasant.
Really?
It really is.
Any Jimmy Buffett songs in the background going on?
I got to tell you, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the times my green screen has me at a location that a lot of people would love to be at. I will tell you, I am there. And it is nice. It really is.
Yeah. Kaylee Larkin says she can hear the waves crashing. And Brandy Ann Jones says, looks like a beach condo balcony. And Jimmy Richardson says he doesn't hear the static. He hears waves. Okay. So we're getting closer. Good. We're narrowing it down.
Well, yeah. Okay.
All right. So, let's move on to the real stuff.
I got to tell you, Ukraine is not a subject of discussion here. Nobody here freaking cares about Ukraine or Russia. And you know what? They all think it's all a bunch of BS.
Really? Well, that's not what the mainstream news has us believing because, well, I don't watch it that much, but apparently it's still running like 24/7.
Well, you would have to be burning a lot of gas for, if you were at your home for it to make any difference to you of what's going on in the world. But obviously, I mean, I don't know. I'm just wondering. Fuel costs were like $1 to $2 during the Trump administration. Now it's pushing $5 and going to push more. I'm just wondering where those 81 million cheerleaders are. Where are they at?
Well, yeah, no kidding. And I want to know, well, what can be done to, it's always a double-edged sword because, of course, our economy here in Louisiana, or at least this part of Louisiana, is largely dependent on oil and natural gas. And so with the rising cost of oil per barrel, and I guess LP is going up, I hadn't paid attention to that, it actually kind of helps our economy, but the flip side is, the counterpoint to that is, every time we go to the pump, we're spending a lot of money. We're spending twice what we were.
So if folks want some statistics, let me give you some hard statistics, Rex. Now, of course, pre-show, you and I had a little bit of discussion. I really want to get on track on what we were talking about to kind of bring it in perspective, but let me give you some perspective. So, for example, you know that I have a service company in the oil and gas industry. So diesel fuel is pushing, $4.50 to $5 gallons, $5 a gallon.
Right.
And so, especially if you have a truck, and diesel is a commodity that you have to have for trucks servicing the oil field.
Mm-hmm.
When loads per se that service the oil field are paying $700 a load, and diesel costs are $4.50 to $5 a gallon. I'm wondering what people think the break-even point is. At what point does it not become economical to service the oil field? I'm wondering what people think.
Interesting point. And we're just full of questions tonight. I've got one for everybody to ponder. And maybe somebody watching, Duke, maybe you can answer this. So if oil, hits, I don't know what it's at now, it's over $100 a barrel, whatever it is now. Okay, and so out of a drum of oil, we only get a gallon of gasoline on an average per barrel of oil, something like that. And the rest of it's all oil byproducts, plastics and all the other thing, kerosene, all the other thing that comes with it. But when oil hits there, so all the gasoline that's already sitting in the storage tanks of the gas stations, how does that rise so quickly? I mean, it's not like they've already paid for that gasoline, right? Is it borderline price gouging, maybe?
Well, you would think there would be some price gouging, but to believe that there was price gouging, you would have to believe that we have a form of government or elected officials or even law enforcement that would regulate those things and that would protect the consumer or you, the American taxpayer. And I got to tell you, Rex, I have no faith in any of our government. I mean, we're already there right out of the gate.
Yeah. Well, this is about to get interesting, everybody.
Yeah. I have no faith in our government, our state government, or any of our elected officials to look out for you, the taxpayer, or any of you. None of you. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Do you know where the majority of all of our oil goes to in the middle of the country? Do you know where that's at?
Mm-mm.
You should. You're from there. Your wife's from there.
Oh, I'm not from there.
Okay, well,
let's be crystal clear.
You're a hick from the sticks. You just married up.
I'm a redneck from North Louisiana.
Yeah, that's right. You married up. You went to Oklahoma and you got you a real American girl. That's right. But the majority of all of our oil, people think, it comes into Louisiana or what have you. But Oklahoma, right up there, there's the hub. That's where it's at.
Yeah, isn't that where Halliburton was based out of? Used to be Duncan, Oklahoma.
That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is like the hub. People think Texas. No, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, we're in a bad spot. We're in a bad spot, and it's not. And look, I'm not going to throw rocks at Democrats. I'm not, because this ain't just a Democrat problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Republican. This is a Democrat. This is all your elected officials. And the reason it's all your elected officials because they all have freaking sold you out for their own self-interest, and they're not looking out for you.
No, they're not.
I'm sorry. They're freaking not. At the state level, at the national level, they're not. And your freaking watchdogs that are supposed to be your three-letter agencies looking out for you, they're not freaking looking out for you either. I'm sorry. I got to take a breath, Rex.
Well, I know where you're coming from, and of course we can't disclose too much of that scenario. But yeah, you're 100% right. It's rigged, and I don't want to sound like a pessimist because hoorah, God bless America, and the whole 9 yards, love our country. However, the system is rigged. Period. Full stop.
The system is freaking rigged against all of us.
Yeah.
And
the local, the district or parish or whatever you want to call it, the state level and the federal level, there's a completely different set of rules to play by. That
it is the local or the state or the federal. Everybody watching this show, there's 70 plus people watching right now. Of those watching, can any of you tell me right now, I just want to know, let's start with the local level. Can any of you tell me why Shed Road's being closed down? Can you tell me? Can any of you answer it? Because your city councilman in Bossier can't give you an answer. None of them will give you an answer. And
I can.
Tommy Chandler, who we all like, supposedly is out for the better good of all of you. And I've known Tommy Chandler for over 20, 30 years. Tommy Chandler, Rex, you got your hand raised. That's like you're
We're
fool.
back. Exactly correct.
We're
back in.
Hand up.
We're back in elementary school.
I was on a roll. I was fixing to bash everybody, and you cut me off.
Well, yeah, but you know why they had to close Shed Road. We've already been told why.
I don't know. Tell
Ruttenbuck,
me.
I'm sorry, Ben. Rauschenbach told us it was gonna cost. What was his quote? 7 figures.
6 figure. 7.
No,
8,
7. 7's a million.
7 figures. I don't remember the number.
It was a lot of figures. Yeah, it was a lot of BS, is what it was. Okay, so yeah, it is all rigged. There's no doubt about it. And I'm watching our clock because our guest is supposed to call in about 7:30. She had another conference call or something, so she may be a little earlier, a little bit late. We'll see. Not a big deal.
Well, the question becomes, when the whole system from the federal, state, and local level is all rigged against you, what do? Where does that leave us? Because I got to tell you, since I've been at this nondescript location for a while now, I've been wondering that. I've been pondering that. I've been sitting here pondering that. Where does that leave us?
It leaves us doing what we're doing right now. Now, I'm not saying everybody jumps on social media, but here's the one slight positive to me in all of this is the influx of, we'll just loosely say, the internet. It is the great equalizer. Think about that for a second. Even with the problems with Facebook and Twitter and all that, now we have Rumble and we got Telegram. That's a whole other story. But anyway, we've got lots of different avenues to be able to converse with other people, like-minded people or people that are polar opposites. And we, whoever it is, any of us, can get our message out. That's the only positive I see.
We're putting it out right now. And to the 70 people plus watching right now, I mean, we appreciate you watching.
Yeah.
But we're not making enough effect to be able to change an outcome. How can we change an outcome when somebody like Tommy Chandler, I've known Tommy Chandler, I mean, almost all of my adult life. Mm-hmm. And if you'd have told me that Tommy Chandler would have been covering and hiding things from the public, I wouldn't have believed you, Rex. I wouldn't have believed you. I would have argued with you and said, no, there's no way.
Is this a Watergate deep throat type of scenario?
No, but it is a condition of our politics. It is a condition of our state as a society, a country, as a whole. I mean, how can we expect people to go to Washington, D.C. and to affect change that will benefit everybody and for the country? How can we expect that when we can't even get it at our local level from somebody we've known our whole lives? How is that possible?
Because the system is rigged, and most people, 99% of them, maybe 99.99% of them, are in it for themselves. That's it. It's really that simple.
I'm gonna pose a question, and you're watching the comments. Where are the public servants? Where are the public servants? What happened to public servants? Rex, what is a public servant to you? What is a public servant to the folks watching?
Well, it's a pretty easy definition. Somebody who serves the public, which means the public votes them in and trusts them to lead, the voting electorate, at least the majority, and to do things that are right for the taxpayers with their tax dollars in a relatively limited fashion. I'll give you an example. I believe in paying some taxes because I like driving down roads. I'm too lazy to ride a horse. I mean, riding horses is fine, but it's not my thing. I would rather get my pickup truck with air conditioner or, right now, with a heater on. I would rather get in my boat that I can run down the lake at 70 miles an hour in. So the government does have a function, And one of those, to me, is building and maintaining the roads. All right, but the problem is, I mean, we look at I-20 out here. I-20 is a disaster, an unmitigated disaster. And then they kind of teased us, and they're going to fix it. And Mike Johnson and all the rest of them. Oh, look, now we're going to fix I-20. Finally, fix this stretch of road that should have been fixed 30 years ago because it exceeded its life expectancy, and it's only been patched since then. Oh, but now they yank it away. Oops, this is going to cost more money than we thought. So, nope, we're not going to fix it. We'll fix everything in South Louisiana. It just pisses me off.
It is the proverbial wag the dog. And I have known Tommy Chandler almost all of my adult life. And why does Tommy Chandler, why can he not explain to me why Shed Road? Why? Let me ask you a question. Why can none of the councilmen of Bossier City explain to me why Shed Road had to be closed?
Kaylee
why
Larkin,
can they not answer the question?
Kaylee Larkin, along with some other comments from our good friend David Crockett, Barry Butler, and several other people, but Kaylee's got a good one, says there are no publicly elected servants. They're all personal agenda based. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
What does everybody think when the folks that you're, like putting up on a pedestal to be, your representative, when they can't even tell you about missing emails, or they cite privilege, or they're hiding things? Why is it that they all have to hide things? Why is that? Shouldn't anything and everything in government be open to the public, to you, the citizens and the taxpayers?
Oh, but just wait. Here in our local government, there are things that are open to the public. As a matter of fact, the title of this show is Judge and Jury, and I should have put Executioner on there because they execute some actions against the public. Today, as a matter of fact, they did.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Do
really.
tell, because being in my nondescript location,
yeah.
I'm not as tuned in as I normally am, but please, tell me.
All right. Well, let me get this pulled up real quick here on the screen. Let's see. Publish. Back to
Are you
live.
telling me? Oh, there it is.
There it
City.
is. Folks, there was an administrative council meeting today in the city council chambers. They don't publicize these or do a live video or stream these, but they did have an administrative council meeting today.
Now, wait a minute, Rex.
Mm-hmm.
An administrative council meeting.
Yes,
what
they
the
have
hell
judges.
is that?
They have judges there.
Judges? Are you
Yes.
telling me that somebody from Benton came down to Bossier?
No, I think these were probably actually people that might read a contract. And let's scroll down and
that's not Charles Jacobs.
No, not by a long stretch. But look, they have some unfinished business, and I'm not putting this up here to call these particular folks out that live at these addresses or whatever. These are the, publicly available agenda, the agenda listing here. Anyway, but they're reviewing the recommendation of removal of a dilapidated structure on Dudley Lane. It looks like another one on Dudley Lane, a condemnation, and a blight hearing over on Sheck's Drive. So apparently, the city council, they can't give records out like they're supposed to, but they can absolutely remove or condemn your property. Did you know that?
So wait a minute. What you're telling me is that they have judge, jury, conviction rights to do pretty much whatever the hell they want to do, but yet when it comes to acknowledging emails or what happened to Shed Road, they're deaf, dumb, and stupid.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it. I mean, let's take a look here. Let me get the screen pulled back up here.
So to everybody in Bossier City, if you want to know about a property that needs to be seized or something needs to be done about a property in Bossier, then hey, they can take over it. But when it comes to, acknowledging what they're doing in government, that's not. No, you can't know that.
Well, look,
it's almost as if I'll hold off. Go ahead, Rex.
Well, I was going to say, for those of you that watch on Thursday nights, we had a Louisiana watch. What was it? A few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, or whatever, and we had our good friends Chris Crackman and State Rep Danny McCormick on, and actually they were doing a little foreshadowing there because they were talking about the Caddo Parish MPC and the problems there. Well, we have a similar thing here now, but that brings up a good point. I'm not saying that these properties, maybe they needed to be condemned. But where is that line drawn? It's that old saying of one person's trash is another person's castle and vice versa. I mean, look, this is a lot of violation descriptions here. Accumulation of rubbish or garbage.
Well, you know what? That's great. If I want to accumulate rubbish, if I'm a citizen of Bossier and I want to accumulate rubbish, I mean, am I not a American citizen? Can I do that? What limits me from being able to do that? Is it because some elected bureaucrat that determines whether or not that's appropriate or not?
I don't know. Now, our good friend David Womack put up a comment. He said it is a process through property standards. They just can't come in and seize it. That is, of course, true, David. But, the old saying, you can't fight City Hall. Now, again, I'm not defending any of these properties. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of familiar with one. And I want to do a little squirrel moment here, but notice that they list a couple of local contractors for lawn service. I wonder how you get on that list, because there's like 40 million lawn maintenance and lawn contractors around Bossier Parish or Bossier City.
Well, that's an amazing question, Rex, because what I would say in this growing, now we're at 80 plus people watching, I'm wondering, so up to this point, getting emails. Apparently in Bossier City, they don't email. As you know, Rex, they smoke signal. They burn, on the east side of Bossier and the west side of Bossier, they, light fires and they send smoke signals to signal, what's going on, right? But as rumor would have it, there were some emails that transpired, over the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to send a request when I get back from this nondescript location that nobody has guessed yet, right?
Well, some people got close, maybe.
I'm gonna send a request and see what, bull crap Charles Jacobs or smoke he blows up our butts about, these emails, because I understand that Bossier City has been having walking quorums here.
Wait a minute. Are you accusing the current city attorney of blowing smoke up the rear ends of taxpaying citizens?
No,
Bossier City residents?
Not.
Oh, okay.
No, absolutely. I'm accusing the former city judge of condoning but I don't know. There's the possibility that he could have sent an email to say that, hey, we don't condone a walking quorum, but you know what? Bossier City doesn't email, right?
Oh,
they don't send emails.
Now, we've already warned them about walking quorums. Surely they're not trying to do those silly shenanigans again. Surely
no,
not.
But this is a former judge from Benton, right? This is a former judge from Benton who is educated, he's schooled, he knows the game, and surely not. No way. Well, so when I get back, I'm going to send a request, and we're going to see if there in fact has been a walking quorum here lately. And if the city attorney has condoned that, because I would think surely there's no way he was on the email chain. But again, emails don't exist in Bossier. Right?
Yeah, exactly. They don't email anything around, but they do have time to go put a notice of condemnation or public hearing or whatever the notice actually says on somebody's property. They have plenty of time to do that. They, yes, being the city council, I doubt it was Jacobs that went out there and taped us on the guy's door, but they've got time to get that done, but they don't have time to respond like they're supposed to public information requests, and they know they kind of have us by a barrel because we've got to take it up with the DA's office, cough, cough. And then it would have to escalate to the AG's office. So I don't know. I can kind of feel your frustration this evening.
I got a lot of frustration, and I got to tell you, you just said the DA's office. I'm wondering because it seems like a lot of roads lead to there. You know, we got an email not long ago about some things that had happened, you know, over in Webster Parish and some historical things, and we haven't quite researched on that. But I'm just wondering.
Are you talking about that SUV that magically leapt off the bridge into the creek?
No, I wasn't talking about that. I'm talking about some other allegations that went on out, you know, in one of the rural areas pertaining to our newest city attorney in Bossier City. But I mean, there's no emails and they can't find anything. So, I mean, I guess, you know, we just have to take it at that and leave it at that, right, Rex?
I mean, guess so.
If government tells us that if it's up, it's up, and if it's down, it's down, we just have to leave it at that, right?
Yeah, we just got to believe them. Speaking of regulations and up is up and down is down, our guest is dialing in. So if you want, we'll kind of pause from the bash the city council for a few minutes, and let's bash Baton Rouge, which of course affects Bossier City too. How about we do that?
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right, let me see if I can successfully get our guest in here. All right, hold on just a second, and let me assign Jill to guest one, and let's see if this brings our guest in. Hello, we got you fixing your hair.
Yeah, sorry.
It was perfect timing.
Every little bit helps, right?
Yeah, so how are you this evening?
I'm great. I'm sorry. I'm running just a tad bit late. I've been on a planning call trying to stop some of this madness. So,
well,
but
that's
I'm
okay.
excited to be back with you guys.
Yeah, we've just been sitting here, you know, trying to figure out where Duke actually is tonight while bashing our city attorney, bashing our local judges, bashing the city council. Who else have we bashed tonight, Duke? We're just on a roll.
Jill, I got to say, I mean, look, you're down there in, I don't know, the Viper Pit. I don't know how to describe it. You're like down there in Baton Rouge, but I mean, DC is just as bad, if not worse. I mean, what would you say? So what would you say to a person like me who feels like, okay, we've lost the judiciary, we've lost the legislative, we've lost the executive. If I'm one of those people that feel like all is lost, and where do we go from here? I mean, are you going to give me good news tonight? Or are you going to tell me, you know what? Because I'm in a bad place. I'm one of those people that thinks that, you know what? I don't know what's up or down.
You know, I totally get that, Duke. I really do. I wish I had I wish I had an easy answer for you.
Yeah, that's not an easy one to answer anyway. I mean, it's like same song, second verse, could get better, gonna get worse.
Guys, it is. I know it is, and I'm sorry, Jill. I mean, look, people say, you know, that maybe we sideswipe people, and I just sideswiped you. But the reality is, that's where we're at. The nondescript location that I'm at, they've got a governor that actually has a spine, unlike the majority of elected officials in our state and across the country, who stood up and said, hey, you know what? Let's be done with this fairy tale. Yep. Because that's what it is. It's a fairy tale. And I'm sorry, the majority of our elected school board people across the state in Louisiana, our elected officials at the state government, the Department of Health, they've all been living this fairy tale, and they've been deceiving all of the public. Am I wrong? Am I like lost my mind down here in the lap of luxury in a nondescript location?
No,
Uh-oh. We lost Jill. Curses.
God.
Curses. That's it. She decided she was bailing.
It's Facebook. It's Zuckerberg. They did it.
Okay, she's back. Hold on. Wait a minute. Somehow we don't have audio. Hold on. Why don't we have audio from Jill? Oh, no.
It's
Hold
Zuckerberg.
on. Yeah,
It's
technical
Zuckerberg.
limitations.
Haven't you seen Wisconsin?
Jill, we can't hear you, so if you will, double tap and close completely out of your browser, hit the link, and come back in. Okay.
See, there's no way, Rex.
All right. Hold on just a second. Technical difficulties. Okay, there. Say something now, Jill.
Am I back?
Aha, we got you. We have audio. Okay.
Okay. I don't know what I did.
That's okay. You're back, and that's the main thing.
It was Zuckerberg. There's no other thing. Go ahead.
Look, I'm on his list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on his list. I was in jail. I was in his jail last month. So I don't doubt that he's involved in the gremlins that are going on tonight. But Duke, to answer your question, what can we do? And this was a similar response to the success that the Bayou Mama Bears have just experienced, down in down in New Orleans. They fought against Mayor Cantrell, the mask mandate that she had in place for children down in New Orleans. And right after Mardi Gras, right when Mayor Cantrell and the school board president, the New Orleans City School Board president, were caught last weekend before Mardi Gras, partying at the Mardi Gras ball, the mayor's ball, maskless, while all the kids were still in school, wearing masks 7 to 8 hours a day, having to wear masks in stores. And so the day after Mardi Gras, here comes Dr. Avino, the health officer for Region 1 down in New Orleans, canceling the mask mandate the day before the day before Mayor Cantrell and the school board president were supposed to be deposed in that lawsuit. How convenient is that? So they're calling that a victory, and it is. I mean, they pressured them really hard. They got them on national news without their mask. But what do you do next? Because these tyrants are still sitting in those seats where they have the ability and the authority to continue to be tyrants. And the Bayou Mama Bears have this wonderful fundraiser, because they had 100 plaintiffs in this lawsuit. So they needed to raise some funds to sue the city of New Orleans. So they sold these fantastic signs about, a Bayou Mama Bear lives here. You're not coming after my cub, that kind of thing. And I told them, I said, the next sign that you put in your yard needs to be your campaign for your run for their office. You cannot sit on your laurels and just glory in this victory. You have to move on to the next step. And that's taking back control in your local area. There you go. There's the Bayou Mama Bears. Mm-hmm. So you have to take back control in your local, and it does. It starts locally. Now, Duke, wherever you are, I know where you are. I would stay there. I love where you are. I would stay there. But if you have to come back, take control. Take some small step in your local area. I know you've run for office once before. Do it again. Get these tyrants out of the school board, out of these seats, off the city council. And before you cast another vote for anybody for public office, you need to know exactly where they stand on these issues. Have they ever read the Constitution? Do they know our state's Constitution? Do they know what the number one obligation for a civil servant in this state is? Like, what is Article 1, Section 1 of this state's Constitution? What does it say? And what is the origin and purpose of government? And if they don't understand their role, do not cast a vote for them. We have set the bar so low for our civil servants, it's unreal. We need to take back control, but we have to have an educated populace, and we have to have an educated candidate class that goes in and runs for office and helps right things. It has gone so terribly wrong, so very terribly wrong.
Well, you bring up a good point. Now, I'm not going to call this person out live tonight, but a couple of years ago, there was a judge's race up here, and the candidates came before a committee to speak, of which I was on. And so my litmus test for all candidates, whether they're local or not, or national, is where do they stand on the Second Amendment? Even if they're local, I just want to hear what they have to say. And so this was, in a judge's race, and I asked the two candidates, do you support open carry? One of the candidates, not open carry, I'm sorry, do you support constitutional carry? And one of the candidates, I had to explain what it meant.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's a super nice guy, good guy, all that kind of stuff. But I was like, nope, no way. No way I can vote for you. So you're right. It's get down to their core level of understanding of government and see where they stand on that, what their foundation is there. And then you'll find out a lot about them.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. Does that help at all? Did I answer your question?
Uh-oh. Mad Duke has muted himself.
We lose Duke this time?
Duke has somehow muted himself, so if he can hear me, he needs to either unmute or sign out and come back in. We're going to play musical chairs with the technology tonight. Okay. Duke, if you can hear me, nod your head. Okay. You've muted yourself, so we can't hear the wind or ocean waves or whatever that is in the background. Either try to get yourself unmuted or sign out and come back in. All right. I'm going to kick you out, come back in. Okay, here we go. So let me text him real quick. All right, so while we're waiting on that, Jill, so I've also got the bill tracker page pulled up. And, folks, I realize it may be a little difficult to read, especially if you're on mobile. But just let me know which of these that you want to discuss, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we have, the last time I was on your show, I was telling you that we were working really hard trying to get some good legislation in the hands of the right legislators. And just to back up, a little bit, we have been stymied quite a bit by the leadership in both parties, but definitely in the Republican Party in the legislature. But we do have some really good, passionate patriots in the legislature that are really, really trying very hard to get the right legislation passed. So I can't throw the baby out in the bathwater, so to speak. There are some good people. Yeah, there are some good people in the legislature. We're our roadblock. We have three people that are blocking our path. That's the governor, that's the Speaker of the House, Clay Snyder, and that's the Senate President, Paige Cortez. So, we can't get anything done with those three gentlemen in place. And some of the stuff that we have, that the legislators have planned, are constitutional amendments. We have several constitutional amendments that have been introduced. And the great thing about a constitutional amendment is that it goes to a vote of the people. It cannot be vetoed by the governor. So we have several constitutional amendments that actually amend sections of Article 1. And then we have two constitutional amendments that actually are new, standalone, what I would call health freedom constitutional amendments that kind of recognize and protect an individual's right to bodily autonomy. So I'm really excited about that. Representative Larry Freeman introduced one of those, and then Representative Beryl Amade introduced the other one real recently. So we have two of those. We have several amendments to sections within the state's Constitution. Articles 1, Sections 3 and 12 both recognize an individual's right to human dignity in regards to their physical condition. So it protects an individual, prohibits discrimination, if you will, in regards to an individual's physical condition. So Representative Kathy Edmonston has introduced a constitutional amendment that would clarify that, if you will, and make sure that people recognize that physical condition includes your immunization, your vaccination status or your immunity status. That is part of your biology. That's your physical condition.
True.
So that's the only change that she's made to Article 1, sections 3 and 12 is just a clarification that physical condition includes your vaccination or immunity status. And one of the reasons we felt it was important to include immunity status in there and not just vaccination status is that, we've got to look forward from where we are now. There's going to be another pandemic. They've already, the globalists, if you will, have already warned us that there's going to be another one for the next time down the road.
Funny how they can predict that. I mean, granted, yes, there's always going to be some sort of virus or whatever there is out there. That's never ending and has been since the beginning of time. But I don't know. I would equate it to we've let our children throw a temper tantrum and a fit and get what they want. Therefore, they're going to try this again.
Exactly.
Now, Rex, I wanted to point something out. I don't know if you can hear me. Do y'all hear me well?
Yes, sir. We can hear you now.
Okay, Larry Freeman, for a lot of the folks, since the majority of people from Bossier may not realize this, but Larry is originally an airman from Barksdale and, has some roots to Bossier. I mean, Jill, I don't know if you even knew that.
I did not know that. I'll have to mention that the next time I see him.
Yeah, so Larry is a guy with roots to Bossier and a good guy. I really like Larry. And Beryl, I have worked with Beryl at the Republican State Central Committee, and Beryl is a true conservative and a person who is, I would say, married to limited government. So you got two good folks right there.
Sorry, did I lose you?
No, you're still here. You're still good.
Batting for the right things. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. Jill, can you still hear us? Can you still hear us, Jill?
I've lost you.
Oh. All right. Come back in. I don't know what's going on. It's technical gremlins tonight.
It's Zuckerberg.
We can hear you. All right. Let me disconnect her. Hold on. All right. So we're cutting Jill out. Let me get her back in. And we've got a comment here that I want to address here in just a second. Let's see. Come back in. Okay. So I've got a comment here, and I want to address this because a lot of people bring this up. And so the comment is that I thought that all fell under HIPAA. All right. Here's the deal, folks. And, full disclosure, I only pretend to be an attorney on Facebook. But I've done a lot of studying for HIPAA because I've helped some doctors' offices and things like that with tech stuff, okay? And most people think that HIPAA covers a whole lot more than it does. It doesn't. It only prevents healthcare workers from disclosing certain information. That's it. Let me just make it clear. Neither HIPAA nor the HITECH Act even require any kind of password scheme to be on computers. Okay, they require a password, but there's no actual security measures spelled out, no nothing. So people think HIPAA covers a lot more than it does. It really doesn't cover that much. You should actually study up on it.
Now, okay. Charles has a little bit of knowledge of HIPAA and a little bit of a background in the medical field to know about HIPAA, but I would argue that we're in uncharted territory in regards to politics and what our elected officials are doing in regards to HIPAA, because I would say that they've pretty much thrown all the laws out the window, and they're pretty much, for the most part, doing what the hell they want to do without any
I agree with that, yeah.
And earlier in the show, I said, where are the public servants? Because the public servants are supposed to look out for the interests of the citizens, not their own self-interest. But, HIPAA's a good point. Or are our public servants at the state level, Jill, is the Department of Health, have they been looking out for the interests of the, citizens of Louisiana, or have they been looking out after their own self-interest? And that may be putting you in a box, and that's not my intent. But from a personal standpoint, I don't feel like they have. I feel like we've been sold out at the federal level, the state level, and even the local level. I mean, I am the most jaded guy there is, and I don't feel like that any government entity, any of them, are looking out for all of our interests as a taxpayer.
Oh, I would totally agree with you on that, Duke. And I shared my letter with you from back in was it December, when I asked for the resignation of the state Secretary of Health and the state health officer. They are literally working for the pharmaceutical industry at this point. They've violated their medical oaths, any kind of human rights issues, the malfeasance of their office is so broad. I just can't even fathom like the harm that they have done. So no, there is any state agency that's looking out for the well-being of the individual right now.
So Jill, if the medical community, let's just say this. Let me say this. The medical community or the real estate industry or the transportation industry or, the widget industry, if all of them are screwing the public, who is it that we're supposed to be able to fall back on to look out for the interest of the citizen? Isn't it the judiciary? Isn't it the judiciary? Right?
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because I was working with a legislator drafting some legislation, and we wanted to include penalties. We wanted to include penalties because we have found that without penalties, what good is it? It's literally like useless unless there's penalties. We can't get anybody to be held accountable. So they were drafting some legislation that was applicable to both businesses and government, right? So public and private. And they wanted to include penalties for both of those sectors of society, public and non-public. And the legislative staff literally could not do that. They said, we can't impose a penalty on government. And we're like, well, but why not?
I want to share a comment up here from our good friend David Womack, who is a contractor, which would be why he's mentioning this, I'm sure, only in the sense of being a contractor. But he says your local contractor that pours concrete. Now, maybe that could be a penalty. Like in the old days of the mafia, the concrete shoes, as they make a trip to the lake. But, of course, that would be violent to say, and we'll get Facebook banned, so we have to be careful here.
Well, Rex.
I only mean that figuratively.
Look, I'm just wondering, to the 81 million people who bought into the bull crap, I'm just wondering, when do you think it's going to come home to your front doorstep? I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Because, all of this crap, the rule of law is dead. We have a failed judiciary, we have a failed legislative branch, and we have a failed executive branch. Where do we go from here? This is what the quote unquote 81 million people wanted. I'm just wondering, where do we go from here? This is what you all supposedly that are out there, this is what you all wanted. Where do we go from here? And Jill, I know that is like way broad, but I'm sorry, it equates to the Louisiana legislature because, and the governor and to the Department of Health, because they all facilitated where we are today. COVID, the Department of Health, John Bell Edwards, Ukraine, this is all interconnected. It's not all separated and apart. This is all a wider thing, and y'all can all call me conspiracy theorists on an island somewhere in a latitude that's warmer than where you are. tinfoil hat. You can call me whatever the hell you want to call me. I could care less. But reality is history is going to prove me to be right. It's going to prove Jill to be right, that we were on the right side of things. I'm just wondering, where are you 81 million people at? I mean,
well, I would say
defend your position.
We just need to start with the 50,000 people around Bossier City, and I don't know what the population of Louisiana is, but the few million people in Louisiana, let's start there. Because, look, we got a bunch of politicians, and Jill, you were being nice to most of them earlier, but we've got a bunch of politicians. What about all our Republican conservatives that were going to stop John Bell Edwards and override his veto? Where the hell are they?
Good grief. What is a conservative? Jill, can you tell us what a conservative is?
What a conservative is? Well, I can tell you they would have voted in the veto session. They would not have called off the veto session. They would have not walked away and then taken a governor's appointment outside of the veto session. I mean, we literally have some people running this state that have, like you said, Rex, no backbone, but they also have no morals. Yeah. So, like, to walk away from the opportunity that we had during that veto session, and this is my hope going into this next legislative session, because, like I said, we have 3 stumbling blocks. We have the governor, the speaker, and the Senate president. And we know we have, just from our standpoint, we have 37 bills that we're tracking that relate back to health freedom. And I anticipate the governor to veto all of them. Like, I don't see him signing any of this into law. It's going to require a veto session, and it's going to require a backbone. I think it's actually going to require a new speaker and a new Senate president for
Jill,
a successful veto session this go round.
Jill, I am so sorry for being rude and interrupting you, but
no, it's okay.
I have no faith that we have a legislature with any backbone. I have no faith in that.
Yeah.
Well,
we know. Yeah. Well, we know, first of all, we know that some of these Republicans are definitely not conservative, and whether or not they're Republicans is in question as well. So we know we have at least 23 that we have. I guess we could count that we have 26 stumbling blocks, not just 3. We have 26. But yeah, so we have a lot to overcome. But at the same time, they have to listen to their constituency. So as I mentioned before, we have to have a well-informed constituency, and we have to have an active constituency. Like, it can't just come from me, and it can't come from you guys consistently. Right. We have to rally the troops. They have to show up at the Capitol. Like, we're having an event next Thursday. I would love everybody that's watching tonight to come to our event next Thursday down at the Capitol for our Rotunda Day, and just show them that people are concerned about it. Because I hear this over and over from representatives when I talk to them. They're not hearing from their constituency. Now, whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. But we need to make sure that we're making the effort on our end to make sure, because just because you put it on Facebook does not mean that your legislator is going to see it. They have to hear it from you directly. No, like, I have my legislators, I have their cell phone number. If you don't have your legislator's cell phone number, their contact information in your phone, you're not doing your job as a constituent. Well, they need to know who you are.
Go ahead, Duke.
Jill, you make a really valid point. I mean, it is to the point. I mean, it is, you're hitting it out of the park, and I'm going to hopefully do it justice in saying what I'm going to say. Okay. So my French is not real good, but Alex de Couteville, are you familiar with him?
Vaguely, yes.
He had a lot of writings, upon the founding of the country, and he had a lot of writings about how governance should be and how democracy should be. And anyway, one of the points I would point out is that, do you know how or what percent of the country like got involved in the revolutionary times to try to break from England? I mean, Rex, you may not know. Do you have an idea of what percentage of the populace of the United States? It wasn't the United States at that time. It was
Right, but of the
still under
colonists and
England.
all that.
The colonies.
Yeah, but you know what percent of the populace got involved to affect change? Do y'all know?
Tell me.
I want to say it was probably not as high as we would like to think, but honestly, I'm not sure.
Now, I could be 100% wrong, but what I read was it was approximately 4%.
Yeah.
It was 4% of the populace. Now, I pose a question to y'all. If we had 4% of our populace showing up at the legislature, calling their legislators, and you know, impressing upon them the importance that we're tired of this crap and we want, government for the people, by the people. We want it back. We don't want government for what's in the best interest of you, the elected politician. We're tired of that crap. What can we accomplish? I mean, yeah, we may only have 60 to 70 people live watching this show right now, but if you 60 to 70 people, if you actually picked up the phone and called your legislator and told them what you thought, it don't make a crap what they say to you. You tell them what you think, what effect that could have. If 4 to 5% during the Revolutionary War were able to secure independence of this country for all of us here today, I mean, what would that mean today? Good grief. I mean,
You're right.
Am I on some island here by myself or whatever? Am I?
Well, you might literally be on an island nearly by yourself for all we know, but you bring up a good point, and Jill, so did you, that we kind of have, Duke, you and I have talked about this, we have a skewed perspective. We eat, sleep, and breathe all of this stuff. And so we just naturally think everybody thinks like we do, but it's not really true. And so, like, our part right now is bringing this out to light on Facebook and YouTube and all that, Bossier Watch and Louisiana Watch. Jill, Chris Crackman mentioned earlier, doing the activism and getting out in front of people and actually making the trips to Baton Rouge. Everybody has their role to play. And so our role is to help spread this information out, but we need everybody else that's watching to bring along 5 friends, educate them, and get them to do their part, which is actually contacting the legislatures and letting them know and all these other things. So there's my soapbox for that.
Right. And, we actually have what we call an advocacy tool that helps people communicate with their legislators, because I hear that all the time. What do I say? I don't know what the bill says. You tell me what I need to say.
Right.
And I get that. I mean, I make the effort to read this legislation. Some of it's, in legalese. What does it mean? So I understand and a person's kind of hesitancy about what message they actually need to convey to their legislators. But in many circumstances, we provide that language for them with an advocacy tool that we have called Voter Voice, where we literally draft an email for a constituent. We leave a little place for them to add their own message, because that's very important. Like if we're asking for, a vote in regards to legislation that would prohibit a vaccine mandate in a workplace type environment, we leave a little place for an individual to write how a workplace and mandate has affected them. Did they lose their job? Did they lose their insurance? Did insurance go up because they refused to be vaccinated? So all of these things, we just kind of leave a little place for them to put in their own message, but then we write our own, draft our own little portion that explains why we want them to vote in favor of this bill. So in many cases, we offer, the message for the person, so they don't have to worry about it. We convey why the bill is important, but there it's a learning curve for a lot of people. But once you get into it, and once you understand like the power of of the constituency, it's almost addictive. Like I love getting people organized and active. Last legislative session was our first year with an advocacy tool like that. And in the few short weeks that we had in last year's legislative session, it was a short session because it was physical, but and there were fewer bills. But we sent over 26,000 emails.
Wow.
So I mean that's a fairly good number of emails.
Wait a minute. You use email?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a tool.
Bossier City uses smoke signals. They don't use email.
Yeah.
I am
Good
blown
one.
away. I'm blown away. You use email. Bossier City.
Maybe one day we can get Bossier City to come into the 19th century and use a fax machine one day, maybe.
That's funny. Poor Bossier City.
Yes. Let me
Bossier City.
I got a couple of comments here. So our good friend David Crockett says, "Is Raymond Cruz helping you organize?" So we're going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit, Jill. We've made plenty of fun of Raymond Cruz, but we've also patted him on the back recently with his comments over the COVID situation and all that in Baton Rouge. He actually did a good job of that.
You mean Krispy Kreme?
Well, Krispy Kreme's COVID, it's almost the same thing. So, which of our local legislators have been on board with helping out? Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, I don't have any legislation right now from Representative Cruz, but I have sent an idea to him that I'm hoping he will help me with. It was kind of late into the fray, close to the deadline when I sent it to him. So I'm hoping, after the last Wednesday at 5 was the deadline for pre-filed bills. After the session starts, each legislator has the opportunity to introduce 5 more pieces of legislation. So I'm hoping that he will carry something for us in regards to health freedom, specifically in regards to the VAERS system. Are you familiar with VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System?
No.
Representative Cruz sits on the House Health and Welfare Committee, and he sat on the committee during a VAERS hearing, an oversight hearing of LDH, and I was able to answer some questions in regards to who is actually responsible to file a VAERS report when someone is injured or killed following the administration of a vaccine. And so my comment was that I had spoken to a coroner, and the coroner, I asked him, are you seeing an increase of individuals come through your office? Of course, they would be deceased who had been recently vaccinated. And he said that the issue with a passive reporting system like VAERS is that it requires the individual to file a report. And he made the comment that the deceased do not report, which is very
I hope
valid
not.
comment.
Yeah. If they do, we've got a whole bigger problem going on.
Right. So Representative Cruz asked if coroners were required to report. Mm-hmm. And under federal statute, it simply says that providers are. And I don't know that in some cases, coroners are active physicians in their own practice, but in their role as coroner, do they administer a vaccine? And I don't think they do. And I don't know that they would necessarily be considered a mandatory reporter. And that's one of the misnomers about VAERS, is that it's considered a passive reporting system, which it is in some cases because an individual can file their own VAERS report. But under federal statute, it's a mandatory reporting system wherein those physicians, pharmacists, anybody that administers a vaccine is a mandatory reporter. They're required under federal law to file a VAERS report if someone makes it known to them. So I had sent some legislation over to Representative Cruz that would put in statute that coroners would be required by law in state law to
Mm-hmm.
file a VAERS report should an individual come through their office that had been recently vaccinated. And anybody, anybody with access to the state database can look into the link system and see who has been recently vaccinated, adults included, because in 2019 the legislature passed a law that requires adults who've been vaccinated, their information goes into the link system as well.
Now,
Interesting.
now, Jill, I want to
Yeah.
ask you a question, and this is a little bit of a segue, and I may put you in a box a little bit here.
Okay.
So, looking forward beyond today, where okay, COVID has went by the wayside, and it's not the mainstream thing. Now Ukraine is. So,
Yeah.
moving forward into our next election, we're going to have a contentious governor's election. Arguably, a governor has been our biggest impediment. If we could only have a governor like they have in Florida and Louisiana, maybe we could have seen the light. But moving forward, I'm wondering, has there been any interaction from your group with the potential governor candidates in the next governor's race? I mean, I'm wondering specifically with two candidates, where is Billy Nungesser and where is, our good friend Jeff Landry? I'm wondering where those two individuals are on the issue.
Well, I can tell you. I can tell you exactly. Okay, because I made this threat, if you will, on Twitter the other day when I saw another potential gubernatorial candidate come out kind of testing the waters with something. And I was like, oh, no. I've been in this 2 years. I've seen what everybody in the Senate, I've seen what Nungesser has done. I've seen some of the texts that Nungesser has sent to people in the state who have asked him for help in regards to their children. And look, I want you to know what they have done to our children. I consider battery. Those policies are battery on our children. I think parents should file police reports, because if a teacher touches your child and puts a mask on them,
do you think
that's battery?
Do you think some of these school board members have liability for some of the action or inaction that they have taken?
Here's the deal. You guys have seen my letters, right? You've gone through my letters. I've sent letters to the school board members. I've sent letters to the governor. Every time I've had the opportunity to testify down at the Capitol, I've made them aware of the fact that they did not fulfill their fiduciary duty in making sure that the policies that they implemented were safe. Remember, we asked before they ever implemented any kind of policy within the school board system, within the Louisiana Department of Education, we asked for the safety studies of long-term mask wearing in children, not just the physical, but the psychological aspect of that. We asked for studies. Prove to us that what you're implementing in the schools is safe. It's their fiduciary duty. RS 1781 is the statute that governs what school board superintendents are allowed to do in the school systems. And Section A or Section 1, it's the very first part of it, says that what they do in the school systems has to be for the good of all the students that are in there. So they have a fiduciary duty to make sure that what they do in those school systems is safe for those kids. And they did not do it. I got a reply back. The only reply I got back when I sent those emails, I sent them to every Bessie board member. I sent them to Kay Brumley. I got a reply back from the executive council for the Louisiana Department of Education. She told me that my inquiry needed to be addressed with the CDC. So I sent a public records request to the CDC saying, show me your random control trials. Show me your random control trials for children ages 2, 4, 6, 8, wearing a mask 7 to 8 hours a day. Show me where that's been proven to be safe. And they couldn't do it. They sent me a link to their webpage showing how to wear a mask. How to wear a mask. That has nothing to do with safety. So I did a public records request because during that first Bessie board meeting back on July 13th of 2020, right before they voted to implement those policies, State Health Officer Joseph Cantor made a comment that all the policies that the Louisiana Department of Health were recommending were, how did he put it? That the policies that they were recommending were evidence-based data, were based on evidence-based data. So I did a public records request on that statement. I said, during this Bessie board meeting, Dr. Joseph Cantor, and I typed it out, made this statement: show me all the supporting documents to support that statement. Show me the evidence-based data of a child wearing a mask 7 to 8 hours a day. Show me where that's safe. Show me where that doesn't impair learning. Show me where that doesn't cause any kind of psychological harm. They sent me back 43 links. Some of them were duplicates. One of them was a study from Ireland showing that there's no transmission in schools, even while those kids still continued to do choir and band, activities where, aerosols were going to be coming out of their mouths. They showed, and this was May of 2020, they knew in May of 2020, because I got that link back from LDH showing there was no transmission in schools. Why did they implement these policies? They had no safety. They had a fiduciary duty to make sure that what they were doing was safe, and they did not do it. They have failed. Every one of them is culpable.
Do you think that there's 81 million people out there that are going to say to us that, you know what, we were right, that they were all defrauded? Do you think that there's 81 million people out? Do you think that there's elected officials that are going to acknowledge that, you know what, we all screwed up, we made a mistake? Do you think they're out there? I'm just wondering, are any of them going to acknowledge? Because I don't believe they are. I'm just wondering, what do you think?
Look, there was a New York Post article that was kind of making the rounds a couple of days ago saying that that these officials should apologize. And I'm like, that doesn't take it near.
Yeah, they're not going to apologize. Don't look for that to happen.
Here's the thing, though, Rax. I'm not going to be happy with an apology. These people, what they have done is so incredibly wrong. They have harmed an entire generation of children. I don't care about me. They have harmed an entire generation of people. They need to be held accountable, especially, look, there's got to be some kind of oversight. We cannot say that the CDC is the be all end all. There has to be some sort of oversight, some type of protection gap between us and the federal government. And if it can't be our Department of Health, who is it going to be?
There's only one.
Some kind of accountability.
There's only one protection gap between us and the federal government. And that gets into a whole Second Amendment conversation, which will scare all the straight people off.
I can tell you who it's not going to be, Rex. It's not going to be the 3-letter agency in Shreveport, because they can't even freaking take a phone call.
I understand. Remember, we can't reveal too much. I want to segue over to I understand your frustration.
There's no difference between them and Washington, D.C.
Yeah, when you can't even get the highest law enforcement agency in the land to look into violations of the law, there's a problem. I do want to bring up a comment real quick, Duke, and then we'll circle back to that. So Chris Crackman says, he's a good fellow, says, I'm curious, what is Jill's opinion on felons entering Louisiana's school system? Likely rhetorical, but I'd appreciate her articulating it.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, I'm familiar with that whole, the coffee bean dude.
This sounds interesting. It's like an episode of South
Park or something. Yeah, you guys have heard about the coffee bean.
You got to educate us a little bit up here in the, We've just been paying attention to Bossier stuff, so educate us a little.
Oh, well, if it's implemented, it'll be statewide. So, but here's the deal. I try to, there's so much on my plate. I try not to get into the weeds in education,
right?
Although it's on my purview as well. But there are some very capable groups that just literally have their thumb on what's going on in the education system. here in Louisiana. Louisiana Save Our Schools, Louisiana Education Alliance, Unmask Louisiana, Brandy Pooh's group from, Caddo. Chris Packman, I think, is one. So all these fantastic groups. I've been just kind of reading their chats over this whole coffee bean incident, and it has to do with this gentleman who was a felon. He was arrested for, I think, breaking and entering, and he's kind of tried to redeem himself and has come up with this program that allows felons to go from jail to I guess civilized society, if you will. But he's decided that it might be okay for them to go into education. And so there are some very active ladies who are putting a halt to that very dramatically. So I don't think that's going to come into fruition. There's some concern that there was already legislation that was passed, but there's a state law that says that I think you have to be out of jail like for 5 years before you can even be considered as an employee within the education system, the Louisiana Department of Education. So I think there's that safety net, but it's concerning that there were individuals within, I don't know if it was Bessie or if it was in the legislature, that were willing to kind of consider the idea as valid. I would be extremely concerned, as I think it was Jen Kerrigan that mentioned that, how is the education system with our state's treasure, our children, is that the place where, someone that just comes out of jail needs to kind of acclimate to society? I don't think that's the right place.
Let me kick the Bossier Parish school system in the ribs a little bit here, and it's not really the school system itself per se, but I don't know if you've read the news up here over the last several years, but there is a rash, and I mean rash, of child molesters in the Bossier school system, and not just in the school system, generally seems to be around this area. I don't know if it's just because our Bossier Sheriff's Department and the Bossier PD are just really good at finding child molesters, and so we just see a lot of them getting arrested. But, I mean, it's like one after the other. Yeah. So I would argue we might be better off with former felons who have been, reclaimed into society. I'm kidding with that, but it's like insanity up here. We make fun of Shreveport. Duke, hold on a second. We make fun of Shreveport all the time for their murder rate, but then they just turn right around and make fun of us because of our child molester and sex trafficking rate in our own school system here.
Now, wait a minute. I don't know that it was child molesters, or I don't know that that's all accurate. I mean, I'm not 100% sure of that.
Shall I hit the magic Google machine?
Well, you can hit the magic Google machine. Now, look, I will say that I will acknowledge that there were some problems, and there were some people that there were some problems.
Pedophiles, child molesters, whatever you want to call them.
I don't know that your classification is exactly correct. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that there weren't some problems, but I would be interested in a couple of cases in whether or not they were still employed by the Bossier Parish school system. And if they were, that should say something about the education system as a whole. And I would argue that that might be the case across all of the public education system across the state. And a case could be made that maybe there's not enough oversight over the public education system.
Could be that. And look, I don't want to insinuate that the Bossier Parish School Board is knowingly letting child molesters and child predators and all that in the school system. But there have been several arrests made in the last few years. And Duke, you know as well as I do, we've gotten anonymous information that claims, and this sounds crazy, and no, I don't have a tinfoil hat on, that there's like this pedophile ring in North Louisiana. I kid you not. I'm not going to dive too far off into that, but we have gotten more than one anonymous piece of information and information from some people that would surprise you. And that's all I'm going to say.
You're right. But I would say that it isn't just Bossier, it is the public education system as a whole. I mean, look,
Yeah.
how ready was the public education system across the state to put the hammer down on both parents, kids, the whole population on this COVID crap? I mean, they were like
Yeah.
fired up about it. They were like eager to do it. I mean, it was all about control. It wasn't about what was in the best interest of the kids or the citizens or the taxpayers as a whole. It was none of that. It was none of that. If any of that was the case, they would have been asking questions. They would have been asking detailed questions at these council meetings in the public's view. They would have been having these debates for the public to have input and to know these detailed answers, but none of them did it. And the ones that did it, they did it after the fact, after it was too late. Right, Jill? Am I wrong?
Well,
Jill's like, I had no idea I was getting in on this conversation.
I'm not real familiar with Bossier Parish school boards and all that kind of fun stuff. You guys
we're
know.
not talking about just Bossier. We're talking about the whole state as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I live over here in Ruston, and our school board president was just arrested over the weekend.
Yes, I saw that, and that was David Galat, if I remember right, who used to
Yeah.
own the property just south of our farm. I'm from Ruston.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's exactly who it was.
Yeah,
So,
I know David.
But all of that to say is these are very human people. When we put them in positions and allow them to rule over our lives and make decisions like masking, staying at home and stuff like that, we have to realize that they're human, they're fallible, and they're not qualified or capable for making medical decisions for us or for our children. So when it comes the next time, the next pandemic, whatever it may be, we have to recognize that these are human beings. They're not qualified. They're not capable of making medical decisions for you or for your family. That we may find that the very next day that, they're, I don't know, they're in some kind of ring. So we cannot hand over that authority to someone outside of the individual that it belongs to, the parents, initially for families and individuals, in the workplace. I mean, because it's not just teachers. I mean, these are our bosses too that are doing things like this. So we have to remember that none of these people, we cannot hand over any kind of bodily autonomy to someone outside of our own person. We have to be in control of that. Does that make sense?
But, yes, Jill, it makes perfect sense. But there was a time when elected officials were accountable to the public. We were the bosses, but that's not the way it is anymore. Now, police jurymen, school board members, city councilmen, these jackwagons of local government, they're now in charge. They're the bosses.
You know who
I blame? The taxpayers. It's not the citizen.
You know who I blame? I blame the greatest generation. You know why? Because the greatest generation had all the kids that have raised the kids that are now raising the kids now and have all voted all these people in. So that'll really make some of my conservative friends go, all right.
Because that's us. Right?
Yeah,
that's us.
Yeah, it is. Think about it for a second. The reason these people are in office is because we, and I'm putting that in air quotes, have put them there. It's not their fault. Power corrupts absolutely. It's not their fault. We've put them in there and let them get by with it, and then we run around and act crazy when they do stupid crap, and then say, "How did they get in there?"
But are the people of our generation, and Jill, Rex, I'm equating y'all, all three of us, of being of the same generation. There's people of our generation that are in public office now. I mean, I got to argue with y'all. I don't see any difference in them taking a different tack from the people of the generation you're speaking of, Rex, I don't see them taking a different tack.
They're not.
I don't.
I agree with you 100%. It's because, and again, I'm putting this in quotes, we weren't raised right. And when I say we, you're right. The people in our generation that are doing this, their parents didn't raise them right, apparently.
Well, may I interject one comment?
Yeah.
And this.
Well, of course, guest Jill Hines.
Because it's not necessarily just our voting record.
Right.
It's our compliance record. Like, we're going along with this. Why are we going along with this? Why haven't we thrown the tea overboard by now? I mean, we shouldn't be wearing masks on planes. We shouldn't be wearing masks on buses. And we definitely should not be sending our kids to school in masks. We should not be, rolling up our sleeves to keep a job. Now, granted, one of the problems with that is the government has put us in such a financial crunch that we're kind of desperate for our income, especially the poorest among us. We have nowhere else to go except for Florida, and now the housing prices in Florida. Duke, take a look around you. Take a look at the realtor ads when you're over there the next couple of days. I mean, the housing prices in Florida, because they've got such a fantastic governor. It's so expensive. The average person probably could not go over there. It's too cost prohibitive. So the part and parcel of this is not only our voting record, but our compliance record. We should never, ever have shut down anything. We should have never stopped going to church. We listened to the wrong people. We put our trust in the wrong place.
Yeah, you're 100% correct.
Agreed 100%, but I'm going to give everybody a stock tip tonight, right now. I'm going to tell everybody. So everybody should know that there's 81 million people that are going to run out there and buy a Tesla over the next couple of months. So if you buy stock in Tesla now, you're going to become wealthy enough that you can move to Florida and you won't have to worry about any of that.
Wait a minute. You haven't heard the newest news. Elon says don't buy Teslas now, buy a gas burner.
Right.
No.
Literally, drill. He may as well have said drill, baby, drill. He basically said the same thing. Now, maybe that's because he's just trying to do some reverse psychology and sell more Teslas. I don't know. But now we're supposed to buy gas burners. I'm so confused.
Well, all I know is the 81 million mythical people out there that voted for the president of the United States, they're supposed to follow his lead and his vice president and go out there and buy a Tesla.
No. You know what?
All the problems.
Whoa, time out. You know what Biden drives, right? It's a 60s model Corvette. Like, they did a whole documentary thing on 60 Minutes or Nightline or one of them when he was vice president, how proud he was of the Corvette because the original Apollo astronauts and all that all had Corvettes.
Don't jade me.
Biden drives a Corvette.
I've got a 73 Corvette. You're ruining it for me.
I mean, I think the only place they let him drive now is like an old abandoned airstrip or something, not on public roads. But literally, the video's out there. He driving in his Corvette in this interview. Mm-hmm. Do as they say, not as they do.
If they're wise, they're putting him in the desert by himself to drive, if he's driving anything at all.
Yeah, Thelma and Louise desert right off the... Oh, I didn't say that about that. All right, so we're at an hour and a half. Jill, I'm sure you didn't realize you were going to get into pedophile ring discussion, Biden driving a Corvette, and all this other stuff that we've talked about.
No, can I tell you about some bills?
Yes, that's like originally what you were going to talk about. I think we might have hit the highlights on one or two, but.
Oh, that's right. There is some kind of legislation we're supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Really so educate us, please.
Yeah, some really good stuff. I won't go over all 37 that we're tracking, but you can. So we have a really good, like I was telling you, the advocacy tool that we have called Voter Voice has a free app. So you can download Voter Voice. It's free.
All right, so
unlike
now,
your gas.
Yeah, no kidding. To be clear for everybody that's watching, so Voter Voice, is it an app like in the App Store on iOS and the Play Store on Google? They can go look for Voter Voice and download that app, correct?
You can download the app. You can also find it on our website. We've added it on to one of our tabs on our website, so you can see the pages on our
Yeah.
Action Center.
What's your address?
Um,
What's the website address again?
our website is healthfreedomla.org. And you can download. You can go there and find it under action, under the Voter Voice, or you can download the app. The app's great because you can get notifications of our call to actions when it's time to call your legislator or send an email to your legislator in regards to this to these bills. But some of our favorites, thanks for showing that. Some of our favorites are. Representative Edmonston has introduced basically an anti-discrimination legislation. So it prohibits discrimination based on your vaccination or immunity status. And what she's done is she's taking everywhere in statute that an individual is protected in regards to age, race, sex, creed, religion, whatever, and she's added the phrase vaccination status or immunity status. So in banking, in housing, in education, the bill's 33 pages long. So wherever it states in state statute that it prohibits discrimination, she's included that phrase so that an individual will not be discriminated against. So that's one of our favorite bills that's been introduced this legislative session. Another one is one that I helped draft and Representative
Kathy is a great legislator. She is, isn't she from Central, or is that Valerie Hodges?
Valerie's from Central. Rep Edmonston is not far from there, but don't get me lying, because I don't know South Louisiana like I do North Louisiana.
Yeah, Kathy's from the same wheelhouse. I mean, I know Kathy and I know Valerie.
Yeah.
I love Kathy to death, but I can see her being a part of a 33-page bill.
Yes, and Valerie, Representative Hodges, has introduced some really good legislation too, because New Orleans has implemented a vaccine passport. They've implemented their own vaccine schedule for school requirements. There's 86 New Orleans city schools that are requiring COVID vaccinations for children as young as 5 years old with an unlicensed, non-FDA approved drug. They're requiring 5 years and up to go to show their vaccination status, to go into a store, to register for school. They have to have proof of immunity. Granted, the state exemption law still applies for the schools, but the fact that LDH granted approval for 86 New Orleans city schools to require COVID vaccinations for children as young as 5 is once again malfeasance. I think they need to investigate Louisiana Department of Health, and once again, Secretary of Health Phillips and State Health Officer Cantor need to resign. So Valerie Hodges has introduced legislation that would not allow local municipalities to set vaccination requirements, that it can only be an act of the state, if you will. So New Orleans, if this happens in 2 years and this legislation passes, New Orleans could not implement a vaccine policy. It would be something that would be required of the state if it did not violate any kind of constitutional guidelines. And that's why those constitutional amendments that will be in the legislature this session are so important. If we can pass that those constitutional amendments, then the state could not implement any kind of vaccination policy that would be discriminatory. So anyway, it's a kind of a layered effect. I've been telling people that we've been looking at this like an onion. We're layering this sucker. We're trying to get as many layers of protections for individuals and parental rights that we can. So those are two great bills that we're going to be supporting. Another one that I started to mention that Representative McCormick is going to carry for us, and I helped draft that one. I'm super excited about it because, again, Louisiana Department of Health is my nemesis. I cannot stand that department and their leadership. I cannot stress that enough, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed that. But anyway, so Rep. McCormick has introduced legislation that would prohibit direct marketing, solicitation, encouragement, whatever, of any kind of medicine, medical procedure, or pharmaceutical drug to minors. I don't know if you guys were familiar with the Shots for Santa campaign, the the Vax-Teen campaign that LDH is putting on right now. They are really they're going after our kids. This is a predatory agency. They're going after our children. So I'm hoping that legislation would help stop that. But it's not just geared towards LDH, it's geared toward any state agency. So that would mean teachers in the school system, Louisiana Department of Education could not market or solicit any kind of pharmaceutical, drug, medical product to a minor. And that covers things like hormone replacement counseling or anything like that for gender identity issues. So I'm kind of excited about that legislation. And then one more I wanted to mention to you. I'm really excited about this. We're calling this the Consumer Protection for Indemnified Products Act. And the way this works, I don't know if you guys are familiar. I think you are. But COVID vaccinations have what's called a liability shield under the PrEP Act. So you cannot sue for injury or death for any kind of harms that the administration of those vaccines may cause. Also, all of the shots that are on the childhood schedule are covered under a federal law called the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. Any kind of drug or medical product that's covered under the PrEP Act or under an EUA has a liability shield. So you cannot sue for injury or harm associated with the use of those products. So what the Consumer Protection for Indemnified Products Act would prohibit the mandate of any kind of indemnified medical product. So a mask, which is indemnified because it's covered under EUA. Now, granted, a mask that's used for that and has FDA approval, like a surgeon's mask going into a surgery theater or a nurse wearing mask into a consult room or something like that, that doesn't count. We're talking about mask respirators N95s that have been granted EUA and are used outside of their intended purpose, 7 to 8 hours a day in a classroom. That's all under EUA. It's an indemnified product. You can't sue for injury associated with its use. So those types of products, vaccines with a liability shield, masks, remdesivir at one point was under EUA. It was indemnified. Monoclonal antibodies, if I'm not mistaken, they're still under EUA, so they're indemnified. You cannot sue. So the government cannot, if this passes, a government or business cannot mandate or require an individual to take an indemnified product. They can recommend it. They can recommend it all day long, but they cannot require it. So that would prohibit, a mask on planes. You can still do it if you want to. It would just prohibit the airline from requiring it. And another part of that would require those who are asking you or recommending the product, they would require them to notify you that product is indemnified, that you cannot sue as a consumer. And I think that's a really important part of that. Too many people don't know, especially many of the people that have been injured by COVID vaccinations. They were never informed off the bat that they could not sue as a consumer, that those products were still considered experimental and they could not sue. And I think that's very much an ethical issue. So those are some pieces of legislation that we're real excited about.
Yeah, and maybe if you get a chance, of course, certainly doesn't have to be tonight or even tomorrow, but if you get a chance, maybe email or text or whatever, or send me a list of the bill numbers or things to keep an eye out for, and we'll make sure and post that on our Facebook page. Or if y'all already have a resource that has those listed, where people can go click or find them, we'd be glad to help share that out.
Yes, absolutely. Well, if you download the Voter Voice app, search for Health Freedom Louisiana, and look for View Key Legislation. I have all of the bills that we're going to be tracking this session. We're going to be putting out calls to action on all of our social media channels. You can find us just about anywhere. We're still on the wait list for Truth Social. I'm excited about that. And then we do call to actions through Voter Voice as well. We do email campaigns there. Where you can email, and usually what we do is wait until maybe a few days right before the bills hit committee, And that's when the committee, because committee looks at them first and then they go to a floor vote. So we'll try to target the committees first, and make sure the message gets in front of them. And then we'll hit the individuals when it gets to the floor. Because, they have over 800 bills on the House side, over 300 bills on the Senate side. So for a legislator, for you to call today and say, when HB 753 comes in front of you, vote yes for it. They're like, wait,
What is
what
that?
did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of wait until it gets right up there in front of them, unless it's something that we're really opposed to. And I would like to mention that there's two bills that we've got our eye on. One of them is by Representative Chris Turner, who is my representative, and it happens to own a pharmacy. And he's introduced legislation that would allow pharmacists, pharmacy techs, pharmacy interns to administer flu vaccinations to children as young as 3. Currently, state law allows pharmacists to administer flu vaccinations to children as young as 7. And so we think that that's kind of, not only is it a conflict of interest, but we're really concerned about children being administered a medical procedure outside of the purview of their pediatrician. Each one of the flu vaccines issues a warning about having resuscitation equipment, that there's the possibility for anaphylaxis. And we don't think that, a pharmacy in Walmart is the place to be resuscitating your child should they experience an anaphylactic reaction to a vaccination. So we want medical procedures to stay where they belong, and that is in the doctor's office. So we're actually hoping that the pediatrician, American Association of Pediatricians, Louisiana chapter, we're hoping that they will be against this bill as well, but we're definitely going to be opposed to that. And we're also watching one that's Representative Thomas Presley has introduced. I've emailed him. I need to email him back, but I'm kind of concerned about some change in the language in the Emergency Powers Act that he's trying to work his way through. It looks like he's trying to make it to where their actions are like necessary. Like right now, the state law says that the state must act in regards to an impending virus or communicable disease or something like that. And he's put in a little bit more stronger language, like they must, or they have to, or they're
they shall act or whatever.
Yeah, it's even stronger than that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm kind of concerned about it. So that one's a no for right now.
Now, look, I like Thomas, but I'm going to say that concerns me a little bit, because I did see that Thomas was kind of out there on the edge on vaccines and masks, and he was kind of out there on the edge. I got to tell you, that concerns me a little bit, that he would be promoting that it mandates the government take action. That concerns me as well too.
You need to talk to your friend, Representative Presley, because he is one of our, he's voted against us, because he's also on the House Health and Welfare Committee, and he's voted against us on just about everything except for the last hearing in December when they wanted to put the shots on the childhood schedule for school attendance. So he voted against the bodily autonomy bill. He voted against the Rep. McCormick's 2 pieces of legislation in 2021 would have prohibited a vaccine mandate in the workplace, and one of them would have required schools to send home exemption information, and he's voted against all of that.
Well, Jill, what I would say is, would you send us a chronology of where he was on each one of these bills? And I will reach out to Thomas, and I'll see if we can get him on the show, and we'll ask him about each one of those issues and why he took the position that he took, because that concerns me a little bit. If Thomas wants to be a representative of the folks in North Louisiana, he needs to kind of explain why he took the positions he took, because I don't know that agrees with the majority of people that watch our show, at least anyway.
No,
Yeah, that sounds like a
would say
plan.
that- yeah, I would watch. I would definitely watch that show. Let me know when you're going to have him on.
Yeah, you've got our number. You could just magically call in. We could have two guests.
That would be awesome.
You know, and look, that's the thing. This isn't to beat up on Thomas,
Right.
but the thing is all of these folks, all of these legislators, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be a legislator. It can be a school board member. It can be a councilman. They can all be nice people. Thomas
Right.
is a nice person. He really is. He is pleasant to talk to. I enjoy his company. But at the end of the day, what their view of what's in the best interest of taxpayers and the citizens may not be the same as all of us. And that's what we're trying to do, is show the public where these people stand on issues. And you need to know, because, for example, and I'm jumping way ahead, and Jill, this has nothing to do with you, but we have a judicial race coming up in Bossier. And that's going to be something that,
Way to segue into that.
yeah, there's a judicial race that it would seem that there are some people that don't want judicial candidates to answer questions. They don't want the public to know maybe where they stand on issues. Now, I have a problem with that, and I have a problem with that overall from government as a whole. Why is it that elected officials are not supposed to be accountable to the public? Where did we go wrong to where elected officials are not accountable to the public? How did we get to this place? Because apparently that's where we're at today.
Yeah, because we keep electing those same people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all good. They're all good people. They're all great people. They're
you know, that's a matter of perspective sometimes.
yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm just saying, some people think Vladimir Putin's okay. A lot of people thought Hitler was fine, and we see how all that turned out. He wasn't such a good guy. Now, I'm not equating some of our local politicians to Hitler, but the principle is the same. Sometimes people are not what they seem and preach to be from the pulpit.
All right. So, Jill, are you a Nazi or a socialist? Which is it? Because you got to be one of the two.
It's not a loaded question. Don't worry, it'll just be between us,
look,
Jill. We won't tell anybody else.
Nobody. I mean, because because the way things are, if you don't support Ukraine, then that means you support Russia and you're a socialist. But if you support Russia or Ukraine, then you're a Nazi, because they got all the Nazi people, right? So you're either one of the two, right?
I know. That's obviously the only two choices.
Yeah, that's it. And I want to point out that the future mayor of Bossier City, Jeremy Gallman, just reminded us that he was asked the same question. But I would remind you, Jeremy, I don't think that you actually answered that question. What kind of a mayoral candidate are you going to be? I'm trying to save you, Jill, there, and get you away from answering that question.
Well, Jill, we're not going to bash you anymore. We appreciate you coming on and giving us an update on what's going on in the legislature. And we're going to reach out to Thomas Presley. We're going to see if we can kind of see where he's at on some of these issues. We need to know. And
yes, you do.
He needs to kind of talk to the public and tell them where he stands and why he stands on these issues.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the other legislators need to articulate. I suspect a lot of them will plead ignorance and say, well, it seemed like that was the way things were. I just had to go along. But don't we expect more?
I would remind everybody that everybody thought the Bellamy salute was a good thing too, saying the Pledge of Allegiance till 1942 or 43, when they decided, doing the Hitler Nazi sign was not such a good thing to do while saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So Congress literally changed it. Sorry, I had to bring that back up again since you got on the Nazi kick. And I would like to point out the future mayor of Bossier, Jeremy Gallman, just did give us a solid reply. He said he is siding in the case of Nazi, given the choice of the two, Ukraine versus Russia. So, I'm not saying being a not.
He likes paying $5 to $6 a gallon per gas. I see it. Okay.
Hey, at least he made a stance one way or the other. Whether it was right or wrong, at least he did make a stance. I'll give him credit for that. I've known Jeremy for several years, so we can pick on him. It's okay. He's shorter than both of us, so we can pick on Jeremy. and neither Duke or I are very tall at all, so, anyway, so just picking on my good friend Jeremy Golden. He's a good guy.
Hey, we're average height. You know what they say, right? I mean, you and I are about 5'5", and if you get over 5'5", if you're 6 foot, you're a freak. If you're over 6 foot, you're a super freak.
Straight up back to when was that song? When did that come out? The 80s? Anyway, all right. So we're going off on a tangent again. Let's start wrapping this up because I do want to play our little video clip of Brian Hammonds as we close out the show. We're now at the 2-hour mark.
All right. Well, Jill, we could go all night, and we don't want to beat you up any more than we already have. We have abused your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, and we will keep us updated on what's going on down there, and you're welcome anytime.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
for allowing
Jill.
me to come on this evening. I appreciate it.
Okay. See you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
See if I can figure out how to get out of here.
Okay. So, yeah, this show kind of just by the seat of our pants went off on several tangents, but that was, as usual, a good update by Jill. She definitely knows her stuff. Several comments about her. She should run for office because she definitely does her homework and knows her stuff. So give her lots of credit for that.
Yeah, she knows the ins and outs of the legislature and the movers and shakers and what's happening down there. And arguably, she is looking out for the interest of the kids and the folks in Louisiana. I mean, she is the type of person that you need in public service. But you know what? I think for some reason she's smarter than that. So I don't think that'll happen.
I think she's where she needs to be, which is educating the public. All right, I want to roll this video, folks. We appreciate all of y'all that are hanging out. This is a 1-minute video. We're going to come right back after this video, and Duke and I will close out the show. But so far, seems like we've got a pretty good city councilman going on in District 1 of Bossier City. And I went back through our District 1 city council debate footage earlier looking for some other stuff and just happened to come across this quote. I completely forgot that he made this. This is in the context of being asked a question about the UL Coleman debacle and lawsuit and all that with the city of Bossier. But the answer here is spot on. So I'm going to roll this video and we'll come right back and we'll close out the show. Folks, y'all pay attention to this.
I'll go ahead and say it. I don't think the citizens are getting the whole story. I think we deserved the whole story because it is our tax dollars that they're wasting away, that you're wasting on lawsuits, no matter what it's for. Everybody hears speculation. There's a gag order on this. There's a gag order on that. We can't talk about this. We can only talk about it behind closed doors. Well, when you're dealing with citizens' money, there is no behind doors talking. You need to talk to the citizens. You need to tell them what is going on, why they made the decisions that they did. And the citizens need to have a voice in that because you're making a decision about our money. It's not their money. It's not the council's money. It is our money.
And I think that's a good place to start wrapping up the show. Remember that, folks. And it's not just about the city council. That statement could be made about any part of government or any government bureaucracy.
Are there any public servants out there anymore? Lynn Higgins, are you out there? I'm just wondering, are you out there? Are there any public servants anymore? I think we just saw a video of one who has an interest in what's best for the public and trying to do what's in the best interest of the citizens. I believe that, but I got to tell you, I think that they're few and far between, Rex, and I am becoming jaded by the day. And I don't know, maybe you're more positive than me. You were trying to turn over the positive leaf.
Well,
Maybe you should articulate something.
I'm trying to turn over the positive leaf because I almost have no hope left, and I'm usually the eternal optimist. The glass is always half full, but I gotta say, it's getting tougher and tougher. But our good District 1 City Councilman Brian Hammond's great quote right there. We'll wrap the show up with that. I'm probably going to take that and make it its own little standalone post on the page as well, so people can just see that quote, because I just thought it was excellent as I was coming across tonight. Folks, we appreciate everybody watching the show. We still got about 40 people watching at 2 hours. This isn't our longest show, but hey, it's probably up there in the top 10 or 15 as far as length, but lots of good information tonight.
Do we want to talk a little bit about and tell folks about a little bit about the race, the election that they have coming up?
Right, but you might want to keep me on a leash a little bit.
Well, I have to keep myself on a leash a little bit, but
this is going to be tough.
This will be tough. So you and I will have to bite our tongues a little bit, but who knew that there is a judicial race coming up? Did you? I mean, there's like two candidates.
There's
running for judge.
signs. Yeah, there's signs everywhere. So
they got signs everywhere. They're sticking them everywhere in the ditches. They're sticking them at the intersections, on public property, private property. They're sticking them everywhere. Yeah. And they're going to all the regular places, Republican
getting
women
the dog and pony show. Yeah, dog and pony shows.
But you know what? There's a lot of people that don't go to all those dog and pony shows. There's a lot of people who want to know about people that are running for office and where they actually stand on things. But Rex.
Yeah, that was the whole premise of us doing the Bessie little debate that we did. The whole premise of doing the District 1 City Council debate, discussion, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, arguably it'd be a good idea to hear from some judicial candidates. So what's the problem with that?
I mean, look, judicial candidates, they're deciding more things of what goes on in government. They're deciding more and more things every day. I mean, they're overtaking the legislative process. They're overtaking the executive process. So therefore, if the judiciary is going to be making the decisions for society, and they're not going to be, just in their role as being the judiciary, and they're going to be making all these decisions, shouldn't they be accountable to the citizens of the public? They should be, right?
You would think so. And look, I realize that there are some things as judicial candidates and, and being attorneys and all, there are some things that they have to be real careful in how they answer. I get that, but you're right. They should actively want to come out and have to answer questions about how they would maybe come to a certain decision.
So, Rex, what I would love to know is why would people in the legal community be steering two judicial candidates to not come on a show to answer questions to the public?
Wait a minute.
Why would they?
Are you saying politics is entering the judicial system?
I got to tell you, word on the street, sources say that there's names that people in the community that you've heard of, that that you've seen on TV, are steering two judicial candidates to not come on our show, who we invited to answer, questions, not gotcha questions, but questions. I don't know that you and I have ever asked a gotcha question of any political candidates, and we wouldn't do it of any judicial candidates. We understand.
Yeah, but look, both of our debate town hall style deals have been pretty fair and entertaining and enlightening. I think anybody that's watched those would agree that we didn't do any gotcha stuff.
Yeah, to go back a little bit. So what folks need to know is you've got two people running for district judge in Bossier, Webster, the 26th JDC,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Doug Stinson and you've
Right.
got Ali Aiello. And so for everybody watching, we invited both of those to come on the show together, not in a debate, because it wouldn't kind of be right for judicial
Right.
candidates to debate. They can't really do that. You know, they've got, I mean, except for the city attorney, who former judge. I mean, of course, judicial canons don't apply to him apparently. But we asked these two that we wanted them to come on, and we wanted to cast them in a good light, to ask some basic questions so that the public would know where they stood on issues to decide who they voted for, who they wanted to vote for. And, you know, neither one has refused to come on, but what we have learned from other sources is that both of those candidates have been being steered to not come on a show like ours to answer questions to the public. Now, why is it that the legal community would be steering, you know, legal people, people who want to be your judge, to not come on a show and answer questions? Why is that? I'm wondering.
Well, there's only two candidates, so it's a 50-50 shot, well, unless it's both of them. But I just got to say that is a little disconcerting, because one of the candidates reached out to me and had no issues with I'm being very careful how I say this, had no issues with coming on the show during our phone conversation. This was a few months ago. So that's a little disconcerting if that's true. I'm not going to say anything yet.
Okay, well, I'm not aware of that. But what I am telling you is that what I understand is from a source that they are both being counseled to not answer questions and to not come on a show like ours to the public.
So they
Now,
have political operatives steering their campaign.
That's right. And again, like I would say, those political operatives are people that are names that people in the public know.
Yeah.
They're people connected.
We both know
to-
them really well.
that are already elected officials. Now, why would they be steering potential judicial candidates to not answer questions of the public and to come, out here? Why is that?
Look,
it blows my mind.
I'll give them a little bit of a cheat sheet. See, that would bring up one of the questions I would ask, which would be a fair question. Why is it that a judicial candidate runs as a Democrat or Republican or even a conservative for that matter? Remember, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind. They're supposed to be the law and, well, the law. So, see, that's a fair question, not a gotcha question. Those are the kind of questions that judicial candidates might encounter, but it bugs me that apparently, and I understand they're elected officials, so by definition it is political. I get that by the literal definition, but it just bugs me that politics and political operatives have entered the fray. It just smacks of good old boy type stuff. So anyway.
Well, just so the public knows, and here's where we'll leave it, both candidates for district judge have been asked to participate in an online show like this and to basically answer questions. We have committed to them that there would be no gotcha questions, that it would be basically what's their belief in issues. But, there's been a commitment out of a candidate to come on the show, and out of one of the two, we're not going to say who, but we're just wondering, are those two actually going to come on our show or not? So the public, it's one thing for them to go to Republican women. It's one thing to go to the different little bodies around town.
Maybe
and
the
speak
PEC
to a
or
dozen people.
Yeah, the Bossier
But
PEC or whatever.
It's another thing to actually speak to, and answer questions to the public. Why should that be a problem? Why should it be a problem? And why is the legal community trying to prevent judicial candidates from having to answer questions or face the public? Why is that? It's an amazing thing.
Well,
Maybe we need to have more oversight of our judicial candidates.
yeah, and you know, I know it's probably time for you to go before the black helicopters show up in your secret location, since we've been on for 2 hours and 14 minutes now. But maybe we'll just have a debate, and we'll put up pictures of the candidates, and we'll present those pictures of candidates, questions from the audience, and we'll come up with the answers we think those candidates would use. And that's how we'll do it. We'll just make up a debate.
Right, and maybe you and I can come up with questions, and we'll ask each other of the legal community. Maybe they can all answer this question. Maybe they can answer this or that question, or about things that have happened over the last few years.
Yeah. Or we'll just make posts and tag them in it, and if they don't answer, sometimes not answering says more than actually answering.
Some of that information that has come our way anonymously, maybe we need to delve into those things.
Yep, never know. All right, folks, let's wrap it up. I'm going to get me something to eat and freshen my sweet tea up. If I can get it in the camera here. All right, Duke, I appreciate you, coming on remotely tonight and doing all that. I know y'all are secretly out of town and hiding, but it turned out to be pretty interesting. Like we said earlier, as usual, Jill did a great job, and we'll just have to do it again next Tuesday night, maybe Thursday evening if we can come up with some more stuff to talk about if you're back in town. But if not, we'll definitely be back next Tuesday. How about that?
Sounds like a good way to sign off. Good night, Rex. Good night.
All right. See y'all later, folks. Thanks for watching.